Now at 11, how a new bill passed by Oregon lawmakers aims to protect those seeking safety.
It's so traumatizing to leave the abuse, to find a safe place, and then to have to relocate.
Plus the message, or rather notes, that a group of protesters had for those operating the Portland ICE facility. And a celebration at Moda Center as the Portland Trailblazers mark International Women's Day with a welcome for the returning Portland Fire.
Great, friendly crowd, lots of yelling and excitement.
Thanks for joining us tonight. We're just 2 weeks away from the start of spring, but winter has no signs of leaving us just yet, especially this week with snow levels dropping and heavy snow in the forecast for the mountains. Thanks so much for joining us here at 11. I'm John Adams. Meteorologist Joe Ranieri has more on what we can expect to see over the next couple days. Hey, Joe.
Hey there, John Adams. We got cherry blossoms popping just down the street, and we're tracking some low elevation snow. On the valley floor, not going to happen. We might see some pockets of a mix of rain and snow, but the big action is going to be in the Oregon Cascades. Now, you travel north, you're into the southern Washington Cascades. A winter storm watch will be in place, but here in Oregon, it's the northern Oregon Cascades that's going to be under a winter weather advisory from tomorrow at 5 a.m. until Tuesday at 5 p.m. And there will be some heavy snow showers at times tomorrow. And there will also be some pockets of a mix of rain and snow, mainly throughout the Coast Range tomorrow morning along the west side of the state. Here locally, I think it's just some scattered showers. We go through the 9 o'clock hour. Those snow showers carry over to the Oregon mountains, and going into the later part of the afternoon, the snow level drops down to about 500 feet Monday night and into Tuesday morning. So heading into Tuesday morning, there could be some light accumulation here and there, but for the most part, this isn't an organized system at all. So we'll be seeing more showers than anything heading into the next couple of days. And speaking of those showers, we're going to be seeing an atmospheric river pointed right at us heading into Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday with rainfall amounts anywhere from 2.5 to maybe 3 inches of rain. I'll talk more about that in a few minutes.
All right, Joe, thanks so much. Out of Gresham, police have booked a driver whose blood alcohol level was more than 3 times the legal limit when he got into a crash. It happened around 3:30 this morning at the intersection of Southeast Division and 182nd. 3 cars were involved and multiple people were hurt. The impaired driver, Antonio Garcia, had the most severe injuries and was taken to a trauma center before being booked into jail. In Beaverton, 1 person was taken to the hospital after a car crashed into a 7-Eleven store. This was on Southwest Murray Boulevard sometime around 1:20 this afternoon. This is what the store looked like after the fact. Much of the damage at the front of the entrance. Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue told us they're not sure if the person hospitalized is the driver or someone else. This weekend, women's advocates are rejoicing with the passage of a bill that protects the identities of tenants. This tenant confidentiality bill imposes penalties on landlords who disclose tenant information without their written consent. RJ Coulter has that story.
The bill had sweeping bipartisan support, and a women's services provider I spoke with says this is a win for safety for Oregon.
There's been a lot of celebration since the passage.
Melissa Earlbaum runs Clackamas Women's Services, which supports survivors of domestic and sexual violence, stalking, trafficking, and other crimes.
We know how important it is for survivors when they finally are able to leave a violent situation and get into a safe and secure housing situation, that they're able to keep that.
But Earlbaum says all too often, the woman's whereabouts get back to her abuser.
It's actually fairly common, and I think it's because information is just shared in a matter of conversation. Again, maybe very well-meaning, but that can create a really high-risk situation for survivors.
That information getting out can mean having to start the process of finding a safe place all over again.
In our housing program, we hear this quite often, where victims' information is shared and the abuser shows up at their place of employment or shows up even sometimes at that housing unit itself.
So this newly passed tenant confidentiality bill would fine the landlord or property owner an amount equal to twice the tenant's rent to be paid to the tenant. The property owner must have written consent to share the information. Exceptions include situations regarding legal or administrative proceedings, like a court order, background check, insurance claim, or maintenance services.
They create clarity for landlords. It's already a best practice, and many property owners are already training their landlords, their maintenance folks, their front desk people on how best to protect tenant confidentiality and privacy. But this law makes it really clear what those standards are and how to abide by them.
The bill now heads to Governor Tina Kotek's desk for signature. Back to you.
All right, Jake, thanks so much. Investigators in Kelso are getting close to finishing their investigation of the fire at the Red Lion Hotel. It's as fire crews have been working since Saturday afternoon, putting out a massive fire that took over much of the building. This morning, work began to remove hazardous parts of the building and remaining hot spots were put out. Areas where the front desk and the ballroom were of that hotel are now mostly just a pile of rubble. Firefighters left around 3 this afternoon. First responders were sent to Northwest Portland earlier today after a car crashed into a house. It happened just before 3:30 this afternoon on Northwest Engelman Street near Mill Ridge Road. Fortunately, no one was hurt, and while there's quite a bit of damage, the home doesn't need to be stabilized. We don't yet know how this incident happened. There are developments on multiple fronts related to Iran tonight. A new supreme leader has been selected. New and escalating attacks are happening, and there is word of another American killed in the war, marking the 7th U.S. service member that has died since the conflict began. We have more from Matt Bradley in Tel Aviv.
Tonight, Israeli and American missile strikes lighting up the skies over Iran for a 9th straight day. As U.S. Central Command reports that another American soldier has died, raising the death toll among U.S. service members to 7. CENTCOM said the soldier died from wounds sustained during an Iranian attack on Saudi Arabia a week ago. An Iranian state media has officially announced its new leader, Mujtaba Khamenei, the son of the Iranian leader who was assassinated last week. The 56-year-old was widely expected to be chosen and is considered a hardliner. Today, Israel threatened to kill the new leader, and President Trump had insisted that he should be able to pick who's in charge of the country. An idea Iran's foreign minister rejected in an interview today with NBC's Kristen Welker.
Will Iran allow President Trump to have any role in picking its new leader?
We allow nobody to interfere in our domestic affairs. This is up to the Iranian people to elect their new leader.
It comes as there's a new focus for Israeli attacks, Iranian energy installations like this fuel depot, and gas pipelines in the capital Tehran. But Iran is still fighting back, saying today that it will expand its target list to include key assets and vital interests of the U.S. and Israel throughout the region, according to Iran's semi-official Fars news agency. U.S. Central Command warns civilians in Iran to avoid crowded areas. They say Iranian forces are using crowd cover to launch attack drones and ballistic missiles. The military offered no evidence to back up its claim. But even as the war widens, President Trump still isn't ruling out sending ground forces into Iran to secure enriched uranium.
Something we could do later on. We wouldn't do it now. Maybe we'd do it later.
The president blaming Iran for strikes that killed more than 170 people at a school, even as the administration's own assessment points to American responsibility. Now, advocacy group Human Rights Watch is calling for a war crimes investigation. Here in Israel, authorities say Iran is increasingly using a troubling weapon. So see this little hole? That's where the cluster munition fell into this house. Now, no one was injured here, but police say that Iran is using these more and more. Cluster munitions that spread tiny bomblets throughout areas like this, a residential area. Israeli police say these weapons are proof Iran is deliberately targeting civilians.
Because when you're using something like this that spreads up to 80 submunitions, raining over residential communities, the facts on the ground speak for themselves.
Oil prices rising higher today, an ongoing trend since the latest joint strikes on Iran began. The prices shot past $100 a barrel for the first time since July of 2022. In a social media post, President Trump called the surging costs a, quote, very small price to pay. Protests of various sizes continue to be held outside the Portland ICE facility. That includes this one earlier today. Organizers called the Sound of Democracy Sing-Along Protest. Instead of the usual chants and costumes we've seen there, these demonstrators had a curated list of 13 songs performed along the sidewalk outside the facility, including America the Beautiful and This Little Light of Mine, as well as resistance songs from other countries.
I just feel like song and voice can sort of break through the static of polarization and all of the things that divide us, because I think we can all be united that like killing people for their First Amendment rights and locking up children is something we can probably all agree is something we don't want our government to do.
This is round two from a similar type of protest that was held in January, featuring a professional choir and band director alongside hundreds of others. The Portland Trailblazers turning up the heat tonight, even more than usual. That's because they were celebrating the return of the Portland's WNBA team, the Portland Fire. To commemorate that and International Women's Day, Moda Center held a special celebration alongside the Blazers game against the Indiana Pacers tonight. They marked the achievements of women in sports as they also welcomed the new team to Moda Center. We asked a couple fans how they felt seeing the Fire return.
We had season tickets the first time around, and we have season tickets now.
And this is where we got most of our memorabilia from the early 2000s when Portland Fire was here and active. So we've been waiting a long time and we're so excited.
Yep.
We are definitely ready for them to tip off. The first 5,000 fans to arrive at Moda tonight also got a Portland Fire keychain. And the Blazers won, by the way.